Okay, so here are the ARC battery charging specs from the ARC manual, and it's just good to have these on hand. This is kind of where I'm getting some of my settings, but you can always pause this or get it out of the ARC manual. These are the battery setup screens. These are just the screens that I'm using for all my settings, and I'll go through and talk about them after I show them to you, but if you're just here for the settings, here they are. All right, so here are the quick and dirty settings for the Solarc 12K using ARC batteries. I have three 51.2 100 amp hour ARC batteries, so that's 300 amp hours or 15 kW. So we're gonna go through what I have found to be the critical menus. First menu, battery setup. I like 0 millivolts per cell. If you have more than 2 ARC batteries, which you should have more than 2, you can do the 185 amp charge rate. And then for voltage, you want to use battery volts charged on the ARC battery. If you find that using percent charge is staying relatively accurate in relation to what the Solarc is showing for SOC, right there, it'll show SOC instead of voltage if I do that. Watch. If I use that. So, but I'm using percentage, so you just want to make sure you're doing that right. I use voltage instead of percentage. And every time you change a setting, you want to hit OK, and you want to go back and make sure that setting stayed. So next in the battery charge menu, we have charge. On this one, I have this is whether or not you're letting power come from. So this charge menu, the way I understand it, if you select that, that means you're letting power come from your gen terminal. If you select this one, grid charge, you're letting it pull AC power from the grid. And then if either one of these is selected, then you can adjust those values. So I don't have them selected right now because I'm not using the grid to charge my batteries. But if you wanted to use a generator to charge your batteries, or use the grid to charge your batteries, let's say like a storm was coming or something like that, then you would enable grid charging. I do not have that enabled right now. But this is also where you would get your charging voltages for your battery. So you can see I have float set to 54.4 as per the ARC specs, and my absorb and equalize is set to 56.7. I do not have it set to 57.2 the way ARC tells you to in their manual, because I find that 56.7 on the Solarc causes this to read 56.7 on the Solarc causes me to read 57.2 on my batteries when I'm charging them, and that's where I want them to be when I'm charging them. They're obviously totally full right now. So you may want to play around with that a little bit. 56.7, 56.9 seems to be the sweet spot. Seems to be the sweet spot. Discharge menu. I do think this is a pretty important menu. 47.8 for shutdown, 48 for low battery. Restart is 51.4, and battery voltage empty is 47 volts. And then the battery resistance is 5 milliohms, and that's, I don't think ARC battery actually gives you that value, but I'm just going off of all the other lithium batteries that are in the Solarc manual. And then smart load, depending on how you want to set that up, that is your choice. I do not have anything in my smart load right now. So next important setting is going to be your grid settings. And I'm in grid tie cell, and I also have time of use enabled so that I can discharge my battery at night down to a certain amount. And I found that 51.9 volts equals around 24% on my battery, and that's about where I want to take it down to. So you can see the way I have it set up right now, it's allowed to drain the batteries down, but at 9 o'clock, between 9 and 2, I'm sorry, between 9 and 1, I make sure that the battery gets full. And then after that, it can drain the battery down to 51.9 the rest of the day if it wants, and at night. And then you see this power, this is the amount of power it's allowed to discharge from the solar arc or the battery when the sun's not up and it's using battery power. And then if it gets below 51.9, it'll just pass grid power through. Not a lot in the cell control menu you should be concerned about. General standards, what you want if you're using a generator, or you want to be able to open up your thresholds. Otherwise, you want to use UL 1741, IEEE 1547 if you're connected to the grid and you're selling power back. But if you are not, and you're trying to connect up a generator, a lot of time you got to do general standard, and then you got to go into grid input, and you've got to open up these frequencies so that it will connect to, I'm sorry, you have to open, where's the frequencies at? Right here, you have to open up some frequencies so it'll grab a dirty generator sometime. But none of that should be something that you need to deal with normally. The main thing you want to realize is if you have a small generator connected to the solar arc, you may have to open the frequency window up, and you can only do that if you enable general standard. So here's that from the solar arc manual.